Yes.
Perfect, and then you can add these.
Good. Yep. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Unfortunately, my better half will not be joining us. We had our parent-teacher conference, our first use of our new school building. That I can take 1% of the credit for this. This is all Elaine and Jamie and Allison, a few other board members there, but just moved into a new 40,000 square foot office building that we've kind of an abandoned office building that we converted into a school for the school that our children go to. And so Elaine is kind of wrapping up all that, and it'll just be me this evening. I think she is going to join us. She's probably listening right now on her phone, might have a few notes to send me in chat. So we'll see. But go ahead and put in chat any wins that you want to celebrate today. Be happy to call out anyone here, and any questions you might have. And we're gonna dive in here in just a moment as I get everything set up here. All right, and a member of our team, Rachel, will be here to help with any Q&A. Oh, chat is disabled right now, so Rachel's gonna be able to fix that in just a moment. All right, so this evening we are here to talk about Douglas Trail Townhomes. That's the latest deal in Black Swan Real Estate Fund 2. We're unbelievably excited about this deal. We're going to talk just for a moment about our background here. If you're on this webinar, there's a good chance you've been on one of these webinars before and seen some of this information before. But if this is your first webinar, my wife Elaine and I, we own Black Swan Real Estate and Black Swan Living Property Management. We have a real estate sales team at Keller Williams here. We're in the top 1/3 of 1% of real estate sales teams in Keller Williams. It's a great honor to be a member of this organization, the largest real estate organization on earth. And we love the culture here, and we love having our sales team here. We bumped up our assets under management figure to we passed the $250 million mark, so that feels like a like a big thing to celebrate to me. We can ditch those millions, and now we're on to the billions. Once we close on all the assets that we have under contract right now, because we have quite a few of them, we're going to be closing in on almost 300 million in assets under management. So that is super duper exciting. We're excited to see that number grow, and can't wait for that $1 billion mark when we get there here in just a few years at our current pace. And we couldn't do that without all you wonderful investors out there. So it's just an honor and privilege to have the opportunity to serve you on this incredible ride. We've raised quite a bit of capital over the years. We've always been able to return capital and pay returns as expected. We're getting ready to break ground on phase 3 of Stonehaven Townhomes. That's going to be a $40 million ground up construction project when all is said and done. I keep saying that we're almost ready to break ground, and then the local government or the county or something figures out some reason why we should pay an extra, $100,000 that we need to pay for some, licensing or permitting or something like that. That's just how new construction goes. And then we have a pretty good sized real estate portfolio ourselves of about $40 million. So we think that whole asset ownership is valuable as a spiritual concept by itself, and we like to practice that as well. Douglas Trail Townhomes is held in Black Swan Real Estate Fund 2. So just a quick update on that. As of right now, I think we have about 19 million of our 30 million raised. I'd have to double check the numbers, as that's moving, and it seems like things have kind of picked up momentum here in the last week. So the fund has been open for about 10 weeks, and we're kind of getting well past the halfway point. And I find that these capital raises tend to fill very quickly as they get towards the end. So maybe it'll be a few weeks, maybe it'll be a month. It's tough to say, you never know, but it does seem like the fund is going to be wrapped up here shortly. So if you like what you see this evening and you'd like to get involved in Fund 2, just go to blackswanfund2.com. You can do that right now. We've got our portal there. You can learn more about some of the other assets that are in the fund, see some of our historical webinars, and set up in the portal. And you can sign some paperwork and remit payment in about 15 minutes. So it's a really quick and easy process. Couldn't recommend enough to jump in and get involved in Fund 2 if you're not already, or make an additional commitment if you're already in the fund and would like to commit for more funds as we get more assets into the fund. I really love that we're getting deals under contract right now about as quickly as we are raising capital. So I would say almost all the capital that's in the fund right now is accounted for in the deals that we already have under contract, which is pretty ideal pacing for that fund. If your capital is raising a little bit slower than you're getting deals under contract, then you need to make sure you go out and raise that capital. You're able to close the things under contract. And if you raise a bunch of money, but you don't have anything to buy, you're not generating yield on that capital. So we're super excited to see that pacing is kind of working out perfectly for us. We're really excited to see the deals that we're getting under contract right now. We really didn't get any big deals under contract for the first half of this year. We wrote a lot of offers, but prices were just really, really high, and we weren't getting offers accepted. And I'm okay with I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. We were not getting a lot of deals when prices were high, and suddenly sellers are motivated in a way that they just have not been motivated in a long time. And we've been able to get quite a few deals under contract. It's not an accident when we decided to raise Fund 2. The timing of when we decided to raise Fund 2 is not an accident. We had a suspicion that this time would come. If you went and listened to one of our webinars from January, we told you that interest rates would be going up in the future, that the market was probably at a peak of sorts, and so it's a good time to buy, but make sure that you're getting a good deal. And we think that the foreseeable future here is going to be an excellent time to buy, because interest rates are going to keep stepping up. But if you can get a deal under contract right now, you can still get a pretty decent interest rate. We're going to dive into the details of the amazing loan that we've been able to secure for this particular opportunity. And there's still great loans to be had, and sellers are hungry because they realize that if they don't sell now, they may not be able to sell for a little while. Who knows what the future may hold. So we really love leading into kind of the Warren Buffett principle to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. And there's definitely some fear out there in the marketplace right now. So we're being greedy, and we are really excited about the deals that we've been able to get under contract. And Douglas Trail is just one of 5 deals that we have under contract in Fund 2 at this time. So without further ado, let's dig into that. So Douglasville Townhomes is a 2001 build community. So it's relatively new construction compared to other properties that we have built lately or that we've purchased lately. We have new 52 townhomes and Nicholas, or I'm sorry, new 52 apartments rather, and Nicholas, and those are newer construction. We've got a couple others that are newer, but most of the other assets that we've recently acquired have been older assets that have huge value add opportunities. I love the vintage of this asset. So this is new enough that it has kind of modern bones, central forced air, heat and air systems, modern construction where you don't have a lot of upcoating to renovate things, but old enough that the finishes are worn out and there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. So all the interior finishes are original, are 21 years old at this point, and certainly it would benefit from some sprucing up. You do need to watch out purchasing these types of vintage assets because your roofs tend to start aging out. And the good news is we worked with a seller and they have just finished replacing every single roof on the property except for the clubhouse that already had an upgraded roof. So that's a $700,000 roofing job that just was completed here a couple of weeks ago while we were under contract on this asset. So you always want to keep an eye on CapEx when you're buying homes in that, in that particular vintage, as some of those original CapEx capital expenditure items are coming due. And I couldn't recommend enough. This vintage of asset is in a sweet spot if you can find something that the finishes are starting to get worn out and it's ready for that remodel, but you don't have the headaches that go with renovating a 100-year-old apartment building. We have 3 of those projects going right now, and it might take us 90 days to renovate one of those units with all the permitting and inspections and upcoating. We're going to be able to renovate one of these units here in like a week. It's just a much quicker, much easier process. And even in 40 of the units, there's not currently a washer dryer in unit. That's going to be a really easy retrofit to do in newer construction, 2001 construction. In that 100-year-old apartment building, retrofitting a washer dryer is a bit of an adventure by comparison. So love that vintage. The contract price on this property is $11 million. That's a really exciting contract price. So there's no public records for how much the current owner purchased the building for. However, we do have access to some lending information databases that only a few select parties have access to. So we can see what loan data is kind of out there that lenders have access to. And with that data, we're able to pretty accurately know that we're paying a price that's almost identical to what the sellers paid for the property in 2017. And I don't know about you, but I think real estate values have gone up a little bit since 2017. But in this case, it is an out-of-town ownership group who has not visited the asset. They've relied on their site management. They've tried to pull back on expenses to try to tighten expenses from afar through COVID. And as a result, there's been some financial challenges with the community, and you can't sell a community for a premium price when there's some problems that need to be fixed. And those are the exact type of assets that we like to purchase. A lot of the CapEx has been kind of done, but the cosmetic renovation opportunity is still there. And there are definitely some financial problems that we're going to be able to fix about this property. Vacancy problems, as we've frequently cured with other acquisitions in the past, and then tenants that fell behind through COVID and they just haven't caught up. So we're going to be stepping in, working with those tenants, saying, "Hey, listen, it seems like you haven't been caught up on rent in quite some time. This is a lose-lose situation here. I don't think that any resident wants to live in a home that they're behind on. We're going to give you an opportunity to vacate and kind of wipe this slate clean and move into a place where you're not behind. You're not trying to catch up and just get things back on track financially." So very excited about the purchase price on this community. When we spoke with various lenders here, they had to rerun the numbers several times because they could not believe the purchase price on this property. By comparison, our total development cost per unit on Stonehaven Townhomes is $300,000 per unit. So it's about $295,000 per unit. And our purchase price here is $110,000 per unit. Now, granted, these are 1-car garages versus 2-car garages at Stonehaven. Stonehaven is, they're way nicer with quartz countertops and stainless steel appliances, whereas these have laminate countertops and white appliances. However, ultimately they are townhomes with very similar configurations and square footages, and we are literally paying 110,000 a unit instead of 290,000 a unit. It's just a staggering gap in price. All the data that we have access to right now tells us that we're probably purchasing these for something in the neighborhood of 30% below market value. In fact, we already have a quote from a lender to give us a full cash out refi on this project. Pretty incredible. I can't say I've ever seen that before. That's a HUD loan. Unfortunately, that HUD loan takes about 7 months to process, just your typical kind of government paperwork situation there. So we can't close with that loan. But the fact that a lender is willing to offer us a full cash out refi on the property before we even closed on the initial acquisition tells you a little bit about just how much opportunity there is financially in this asset and the incredible purchase price that we've been able to negotiate on this asset. It was an off-market opportunity. I remember we got a call from the broker, and basically he said, "Are you in a position where you can go look at a property and make us an offer in the next few hours?" And we said, "Absolutely, we can. That is us." And we got our team together. Fortunately, this asset is about 5 or 6 minutes away from our office. We could drive right out, and we were able to just catch the seller on the right day. The seller in place has a variable rate loan. Again, we can see that information in that database, and no doubt they're getting a little bit of pressure, a little bit of financial pressure as interest rates have gone up. So we were able to step in and essentially purchase the property net for what they paid for it. Very few sellers are going to ever sell a property for less than they paid for it, but we're able to get them out of this challenging situation. And anytime we can get ourselves into that kind of situation at this kind of purchase price, we are extraordinarily excited. There's 100 units here. There's 60 3-bed units and 40 2-bed units. All the 3-bed units have a in-unit washer dryer. The 42-bed units don't yet. They all have 1-car attached garages with about 1,000 square feet of footage. So they're large, very spacious townhomes, all with direct access on a huge 11-acre campus. This is just a massive, beautiful parcel in a really desirable part of town that we're super excited about. We've got a few different projections. We'll share 1 or 2 of those with you here, but we're projecting very healthy double-digit cash-on-cash rate of return for this particular deal, and like a 30 to 40% total annualized rate of return. Not including the forced appreciation opportunity here. Just looking at like a 4% organic appreciation. So this is an extraordinarily high yield asset. I'm guessing I'm going to be surprised if we have not achieved a full cash out refinance on this particular project in less than 2 years. So in funds too, as we talk about a full return of capital in less than 5 years. Historically, it's never taken us more than 3 years to return capital, though certainly the wind has been at our back along with anyone else investing in real estate. But historically, it's not taken us much time. This is the kind of asset where, at the 1-year mark, we're going to be talking to lenders about refinancing this asset. And the number one lending term that we were trying to negotiate with lenders was mitigating our prepayment penalty, because that refinance, it's just so close in the future. So we're very excited to dig into that. We're projecting a close here about mid-October 2022. And this is a Section 42 affordable housing opportunity. So it's income restricted. You can't live here unless you make less than a certain amount of money. And that's something we're going to dig into here quite a bit later in the webinar. But it's something that we're really excited about. It's something that really speaks to our mission. This would be our first Section 42 property. And we think we have an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to change the game, to change what it means to be an income restricted or an affordable property. And we're going to do that, starting with this really huge opportunity right here in our backyard. And then who knows where we're going to take it from there. But we are really excited to be doing a Section 42 deal here. Jump over to our next slide. So here's a couple of photos of Douglas Trail Townhomes. This gives you an idea of just the interior finishes. They're pretty nice. Sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit there on accident. They've got, white appliances and laminate countertops, but they're pretty nice. They're not, super dated or anything like that. Basic faucet. The cabinets are solid wood cabinets. Again, kind of honey maple, maybe a little bit dated, but they're not bad at all. Kind of an inexpensive rolled vinyl flooring, inexpensive carpet. And then you can see the one of the bathrooms there in the lower right-hand corner. It's modest finishes in the bathroom, but it's a very spacious bathroom with like a 48-inch vanity. the whole unit is very, very spacious. Sometimes these townhomes, they stack them up to be, like 15 deep. So there's a bunch of interior units that can, not have a lot of natural light, and there's smaller square footages. There's a new townhome community being developed right now in Rochester and those townhomes are quite a bit smaller than these, or they are 3-story walk-ups. So it's a main floor garage, then your living room kind of level on top of that, then your bedroom levels on top of that. So this is a slab on grade where your garage and your main living area are on the same level at ground level, and then the beds and your bathroom are upstairs. This is the most classic, common, most desirable townhome configuration in our market. And it's not a cheap construction style. So there's a lot of cheaper ways you could do like a 3-story walk-up construction style for townhomes. And I just love that, on the bones of these things, no corners were cut. So there's clearly an opportunity where we could go in and, do some cosmetic improvements to the property. But the bones of these townhomes were absolutely phenomenal. So this is like an, top-down aerial view perspective on Douglas Trail Townhomes. And you can see in the middle here, we've got a basketball court, we've got a playground, there's a clubhouse type area here, a parking lot. There's actually 3 different parking lots. So there's a parking lot here in the northeast corner, parking lot for the clubhouse area here, and then a pretty darn spacious parking area here along the south side as well. A lot of times these townhome communities really skimp on that. And it's common to see, just higher density than this. There's a huge green belt surrounding the perimeter, and then a really nice green belt on the interior. It's just a beautiful layout. It's really well laid out. They really thought it out. Your typical building is just 4 units, and you have the 3-bed units on the interior, the 2-bed units on the exterior. And I love how everything is laid out. Give me just one second. I'm going to check in with my team. I think people are trying to tell me how to turn on chat here. So bear with me for just one moment. They're giving me some instructions on how to enable chat. So I really apologize that we've not had the opportunity to enable chat. Click on participants in the meeting controls at the bottom of the Zoom window. I'm apologizing here. I don't want to have too much dead air, but we are going to get the chat figured out. Maybe Rachel can step over here and get it figured out for me here. So we've got just a wonderful layout to Douglas Trail Townhomes. Unbelievably excited to see what this looks like here. This is just the little Google Maps path from our office to Douglas Trail. Again, it's a 6-minute drive. Love how accessible this asset is. Very nice to have an asset that's this easy to manage, this easy to reach. We're going to be able to basically have all of our staff there for the first week or something like that, when we're knocking on doors and getting to meet with people face to face. And I'm really excited to see exactly what that looks like. It's going to be we'll have some coffee and donuts and stuff that we bring. It's going to be really easy to have all of our staff members there when we're first implementing that transition. And many of the staff, many of the on-site staff are actually going to be retained through that transition period. So we're excited. There's going to be continuity for the staff that are there, continuity for the residents who are living there, and it's just going to be a really smooth transition. Love that proximity. It also enjoys really phenomenal proximity to the Douglas State Trail. That's what it's named after, is the Douglas State Trail. So this is a really, really gorgeous trail. People come from all over southeastern Minnesota to bike or jog or hike on this trail. It has bridges that connect to different parts of Rochester. It's an incredibly sophisticated and beautiful trail system. At one point, it was like a railroad type system, and now it's a really just a beautiful kind of nature trail system that goes right by this townhome community as an incredible amenity to have access to. So let's talk about the lending. We've talked about the importance of getting an incredible loan on these commercial assets. You can get a good price on the asset, but the lending is what really kind of sets this thing on fire. So we just finished doing this slide here a couple of hours ago, and I think we talked to probably 6 different banks, probably communicated with up to 20 banks total. I've spent, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 40 hours negotiating the loan on this particular project. It has lots of kind of unique characteristics that make it eligible for a particularly advantageous loan. And just getting banks to compete against each other. But from a high level perspective, this is a full recourse loan from a local regional bank. And I think that that's something that's important to speak to. So we did solicit for some non-recourse loan options just to see what was available, and we ended up looking at loans that were radically more expensive than this loan, like a 7% interest rate instead of a 4.85% interest rate. So Elaine and I we're willing to sign for the recourse on that loan. And that's a huge improvement in the rate of return that we're able to deliver. Certainly a risk or a cost that Elaine and I shoulder, and it's something that really sets us apart in the way that we structure funds too. This particular loan, one of the most important terms that we negotiated there was we got the prepayment penalty down from typically you get a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 step down prepayment penalty. So if we refinance this property in the first year, we could potentially pay a 5% prepayment penalty. So again, a $10 million loan, we would pay $500,000 to refinance that. And we're pretty sure that this is a loan that we will be able to refinance in the immediate future. So we were really aggressively negotiating on that particular term. We were able to get that down from a 54321 to a 11.500. So just an incredible reduction in the prepayment penalty on this particular loan. We're able to get an 80% loan to cost. So loan to value is your purchase price, the value of that purchase. Loan to cost is your total project cost. What that means is the improvement costs or the construction costs for all the renovations are included in the loan. We have a $1.2 million construction project that we plan to execute on this property, and 100% of that construction cost is included in the loan, which is it's an incredibly advantageous thing. In this particular case, we're even able to negotiate that we're able to pay for those improvements with reimbursement. So the way this typically works with a construction loan is you have your flooring installer go out there and install flooring, and then the flooring installer needs to submit some paperwork like a lien waiver to an escrow or title company, and then the bank pays that flooring installer for the work that they've done, which is kind of a big hassle. And most of the contractors that we work with, we've been working with them for many years. We've got a super streamlined process. They're in our software, in our property management software. So literally they just submit their invoice in the property management software and they're paid like a day later. This lets us get really high priority scheduling, really favorable treatment, and certainly very favorable pricing. And some lenders, they don't like to be, they don't like to reimburse the person executing the improvements after the improvements have been done, because they want to make sure that that money is being allocated appropriately. It's basically they really want to micromanage the flow of capital in the project. The reality of the situation is this actually protects the bank because the work has already been done. So we're going to front, say, $100,000 of capital in investment in the project, and then get reimbursed that $100,000 after the fact. So the fact that we've got a local regional bank who is going to be able to work with that really, really streamlined process that cranks down our renovation costs, we're unbelievably excited about that. And that's at a 100% of improvement cost ratio to boot. So just a staggeringly good amount of construction proceeds we're getting from this loan. We're at 4.85 fixed for 5 years, which again is an incredibly good interest rate. We saw quotes all the way up to 6 or even 7% from some other lenders. Our next best interest rate that we were able to find was about 5.25. So if this loan does run out for the full 5 years, this is going to be an incredibly favorable rate. We're coaching one individual that was just looking at getting a conventional loan on their investment property, and they were quoted an interest rate at 7.25. And it's certainly not an optimal loan, but just you're able to get really favorable loan or rates on commercial loans right now if you're a strong operator that has a strong project. far more favorable rates than you're able to get when you have a conventional loan just right this second. That's the lending climate that we're in historically. You're typically able to get a better rate from a conventional loan than a commercial loan, but right now you're able to get really good rates from commercial lenders if they have a project that they're excited about. If you have maybe a project that seems a little thin or a little bit risky, it's hard to get a loan at all. But if you have a project that they're excited about, the banks are incredibly hungry to lend right this second. Interest only payments on this loan for the first 18 months, so a very long IO period, an exceptionally long IO period. I mentioned that construction expenses are reimbursed retroactively, and then I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but we're able to get them to waive PCR and environmental reporting testing. So there's a bunch of little costs associated with a typical loan. We'll frequently ask to get a title opinion instead of title insurance, lender's title opinion instead of title insurance. There's a lot of little costs like this that we'll just say, hey, can you waive this fee, or can you defer this cost? And if you ask and they're excited about doing the project, they'll typically say yes, just to, oh, it's only $5,000. Oh, it's only $10,000. And in this way, we're frequently able to save $10, $15, $20, $30,000 in closing costs on some of these large loans. In this particular case, I'm very excited that we're able to basically save an amount of closing costs that equals several months of interest payments on the loan. It's difficult to calculate exactly what that is on like an ROI basis, but anytime I'm able to save tens of thousands of dollars of cash out of pocket at the closing table, I'm extremely excited about that. We aggressively negotiate to reduce those fees. This is one of the really cool things about the fund is when you go to a lender, you say, listen, this isn't just one loan. This is a lot of loans. We'd love to get a lot of loans from you. If you want to do business with us, if you want to win all this lending business, you're gonna have to give us a discount. When you're just getting one loan on, say, one single family home or even on one apartment complex, you don't have that kind of bargaining power. When we go to a bank and we say we have 5 apartment buildings under contract right now, we have tens of millions of dollars of real estate under contract right now, let's make a deal. That conversation is a totally different conversation than when you have just one project, even a good sized project to discuss or to negotiate. There was probably, I would say, about 4 rounds of negotiation on this particular loan, just going back and forth to different lenders saying, hey, who's going to be able to win the business here? We're really excited about this. This is an incredibly strong project. Many of the lenders gave us feedback that this is the most financially strong project that they've seen all year long. Earlier in this year, prices were high and margins were kind of thin on a lot of deals. And they basically just said flat out, this is the strongest deal that we have underwritten all year long. And they were, the call was, it wasn't like we were aggressively trying to haggle with them. The call was, do not say yes to someone else without calling us first. Like multiple bankers were basically saying, we're going to do whatever it takes to win this business. So please don't say yes to someone else without calling us first, because we'll negotiate, we'll come down more, whatever term it's going to take to win. We're gonna get the business. So extremely excited to share the lending package that we're able to achieve. And I'm very excited about it. So let's talk about the renovations we're going to implement here. We've budgeted about $200,000 for our common area renovations. And right now there's a laundromat in the facility. It's actually a pretty nice laundromat. You can see the photo there in the lower left-hand corner. There's a soda machine, nice LVP flooring. They probably did all this work here within just the last 5 years. But our goal is to get rid of the laundromat. So we want to get in-unit washer and dryers installed in every single unit, and not just in the 3-bed units. And then we'll be able to convert that to a more useful function. Probably a small gym is what I suspect it will become. But we're looking at a couple of different options. Could be a community room or a media room, something of that nature. You can see in the lower center picture there, that's kind of the entryway when you first walk in. I think it would be nice to have just a stronger kind of amenity presence in that area when you first walk into the property. It'd be kind of weird, but actually you could almost put the gym in there. We did a really beautiful gym in one of our apartment buildings here recently, New 52. That's just a few miles from this asset. And I think it shows super well. Maybe flip it around or something like that. So the gym is back there in the office when you first come in. Has a really nice office space. So I mean, we could easily put 4 different staff members on site, and they'd be very comfortably accommodated there with public bathrooms. There's a huge workshop space for the handyman. It has a golf cart with overhead door and pegboard and climate controlled storage and non-climate controlled storage, multiple storage areas. We could put up, a prefabricated, big tough shed type structure or something if we needed additional storage while we're doing these huge renovations. Just really, really valuable kind of common area space for people to use. Right now, I think people are like, there's a couple of people charging their electric cars there or something like that. There's like a charger there for the golf carts. There's an electrical hookup there. There's kind of a modest playground right now. I'd love to see that get spruced up. So we're really curious to closely monitor the utilization of that amenity and see if people are using that a lot. And then there's a basketball court that gets used quite a bit. So we're trying to decide, that the asphalt's in good condition, like it's in pretty good shape all around. Maybe we can stripe it. What can we do to really spruce that up? Right now, there's no amenities for pets whatsoever, which is shocking. If you take a look at that overhead again, there's this huge green space area in the center of the community where it would be really easy for us to put in, a fenced in, Schutzhund course or something like that. A nice little dog park area. And there's a couple areas around the perimeter where we could do something similar. So I can't wait to find out, what's going to make the most sense. We're going to survey the residents and see what sort of amenities they would love to have. Maybe they just love the green spaces and we spruce those up and just do some landscaping love on this particular project. So I'm a huge fan of building the amenities that the resident wants, not necessarily the amenities that sound good in a conference room. So that's the Japanese concept of the gemba, or going to the place of real work. So we love to go to the place where the action is and talk to the people who are actually going to use these amenities and try to put ourselves in their shoes and just say, hey, what would you love to see in this community? And in short order, it usually, it becomes apparent what's needed, what's wanted. So those are just a few of the improvements that we'll make to the common areas there. And then the big renovation project is going to be in the units. So 200,000 approximately of our renovation budget of the 1.2 million renovation budget is for common areas. And then $1 million is for improvements within the units themselves, or approximately $10,000 per unit. So a big part of that's going to be retrofitting a washer dryer into the 42 bed units that don't currently have a washer dryer. We're really excited to just get a washer dryer into every unit. That is in our mind, that's just a minimum standard, especially for, like a 2 bed, 2 bath, attached garage townhome. It's a little crazy to me that you would not have a washer dryer in that unit. That just seems like an essential amenity to include. So for us, we go to great lengths to retrofit washer dryers anywhere we can into any unit we can. And this is one where it's actually going to be pretty easy because there's sloped roofs on top. So there's really easy, kind of crawl space, attic access. And in the 2-bedroom units, they all have, kind of more or less identical floor plans. So there's a spot in the master bedroom closet where we could put a compactor, or even if we wanted to, full-size appliances that would still fit inside that closet area. And people are just going to love having, a washer dryer in their unit in those 2-bed units. We're going to do our usual set of upgrades with, updating the sockets, the switches, the light fixtures, faucets. So all the water fixtures, not just the light fixtures, bathroom hardware. Right now, it kind of cracks me up. So you can kind of see in the photo there in the lower right-hand corner, the bathroom. They have the clear plastic handle faucet. They've got the $20 faucet. And you can put in the $60 faucet. Like it's not a huge dollar amount. It's always amusing to me when I see those really, really cheap fixtures. Like you typically have to pay a plumber, $75 in labor charge to install that faucet. Like, why would you ever pay the $75 in labor charge to install the $20 in material faucet? Like, install the $60 faucet, looks really nice. It's probably going to last longer, is going to have better functionality. The towel rod there is it looks like kind of like a handicapped grab bar. It's kind of an odd thing. And then you can't quite see it in this picture, but they have the $1 toilet paper holder, where it's kind of the fake chrome plastic with the white roller in the middle, and we can get the, the $20 toilet paper holder. These are not expensive things, but I think it makes all the difference in the world when I'm, using the restroom and I'm using the $1 toilet paper holder. That speaks to me as the resident that the landlord does not that's not something that they value. And so there's a huge opportunity, I think, to improve, the tangible way that that it feels. In fact, we love to work on the things that people physically touch. So door handles is something that we update in all of our properties. These have, kind of older, cheaper door handles that have kind of plastic parts. So you go to turn the door handle and it feels kind of hollow and cheap. And I know when you go turn a real door handle that's really heavy, made out of kind of solid metal, it feels good when you when you turn that in your hand. So we love to upgrade those things that people touch. We'll install premium keypad locks on all the units. So right now, there's not a master key for the individual units. So when we were doing walkthroughs for all the units, we had to bring Tupperware buckets of keys for each individual unit. And I mean, I think that's a little bit crazy. I think that's a little bit crazy from a maintenance, and management perspective. Like, how many times does it take for someone to get locked out that you've paid for that keypad lock? And again, as someone comes and goes every single day and they're interacting with that premium, commercial grade keypad lock instead of that kind of fiddly plastic handle door handle that doesn't quite work right. I think it has a real tangible effect on your feel for the quality of the community and how your presence is valued in the community. Another kind of policy change that's not directly related to the renovations is right now you're charged separately for your washer and dryer. So the rent is this amount, and then they bill for your washer dryer on top of that, because not every unit has a washer dryer. And so in their mind, it made sense to kind of make it like an additional line item. But then you have this weird game with the tenants where they might say, okay, I won't take the washer dryer, but then are you really going to remove the washer dryer? If you remove them, like, that costs you money to have your maintenance person remove the washer dryer, then you've got to go store it somewhere. And half the time when we call it appliance rodeo. when you're playing appliance rodeo, the appliance doesn't work when it finds its new home several months from now. So we're just going to include that washer and dryer in every single unit. It's included as part of the rent. Rents will be going up significantly because we're going to step up the level of management and the physical improvements of the unit so much. And that's just going to include these things. It's not a good way to do business to nickel and dime people with additional charges. I would hate to come tour an apartment unit. I saw this price quoted, and then, find out, after getting there that, oh, it's actually, $50 a month more to use the washer and dryer that you saw in the photos that were advertised in apartments.com. Maybe we're leaving some money on the table that way, but that's just how we feel. And getting washer dryer into every single unit, I think, is going to be a really powerful, physical renovation, but just a spiritual renovation, and then the policies to go with it. We're going to repaint every unit to a modern gray color scheme. We're going to install all new luxury vinyl plank flooring, really premium flooring, kind of your basic, paint and flooring type improvements. The nice thing is we're able to kind of, meter that as the units turn over. We are already working on a bulk contract with our favorite flooring installer. We've got a couple different installers we're looking at working with to install, what would amount to like 100,000 square feet of luxury vinyl plank flooring. So I'm excited to see what kind of pricing we're able to achieve. There's plenty of space on site where we could locate some, shipping containers full of luxury vinyl plank flooring and other other things that we need to perform our renovations. And I'm excited to see the kind of economies of scale we're going to be able to achieve here. Let's talk about section 42. So and feel free to pipe into chat questions that you have. There's a few questions here. Some people who are newer to Black Swan, so I'm very excited to see that. I'm going to make sure that we answer every single question before we wrap up here at the end. But feel free to pipe in those questions. Rachel's recording those questions. I'm going to make sure all those get answered here. Section 42 for our existing, if this is not your first Black Swan webinar, this will be the first webinar you hear about section 42. So I really want to dig into that in detail and talk about why we're so excited about that. So first and foremost, we see this as an opportunity to serve. So this is low income housing or affordable housing or income restricted housing or workforce housing. There's a lot of different, euphemisms or colloquial expressions for it. But at the end of the day, it's contained in Section 42 of the IRS tax code. The IRS offers tax credits for people to develop and purchase and operate affordable housing. So this is very different from Section 8 housing. If you kind of look at the evolution of public housing and how the government has endeavored to subsidize the cost of housing. The government tried to own and operate housing projects back around the mid-century, and that didn't turn out so good. That became the housing projects. There are still plenty of public housing options around the country, but there's really very little new public housing that's being created today. It's just it's a failed program that's not growing, and in most cases is shrinking. They're returning public housing back to private ownership. They realize that private citizens tend to be better landlords than the government, and so if they can figure out a way to kind of harness private operators and appropriately incentivize them to provide affordable housing, they're going to get better net outcomes. So the next thing that they tried was Section 8. So you might have heard of Section 8 vouchers. You might have heard how there's like a long wait list for vouchers. And again, that's because that's a program that did not have the best outcomes. And so it's not a program that's growing in the country. There's not a lot of additional funding dollars coming into Section 8 housing at this time. And then Section 42 came along. LIHTC is another, LIHTC is another word for it. There's a lot of different words for it. And basically what this said is you can only rent to people who make less than a certain amount of money. And if you do this, we'll give you a tax subsidy. So the most common structure that we see in our state, and it varies state by state, is you have a 30-year, what's called a LURA, or a land use restriction agreement, that says we're only going to rent this to people who make typically a certain percent of the area, the average median income AMI. And if you do that for 30 years, we will give you a tax credit, a payment, a redeemable tax credit, a tradable tax credit. There's different kind of structures for these tax credits for 15 years. So you get a subsidy for 15 years, and then there's a 15-year unsubsidized period where you have to offer that affordable housing, but you don't get that tax credit. And so the idea is you're trying to instigate the creation of naturally occurring affordable housing, or NOAA. And then different incentives come along to prod you along and encourage you to extend that LURA. For example, if we got a HUD loan on this property, which would be a really, really, really favorable loan to get, we would have to extend that land use restriction agreement for an additional period of time as kind of an offset for getting that government subsidy from HUD. So it's a really good program. It's working really well. It's growing. It's had good outcomes, because basically they've figured out a way to, from a society, from a social perspective, I can't think of the right word to use here. If we can mix people of different income strata in one housing subdivision, we don't get kind of a concentration of some of the societal ills that go with, what we would, historically see with, public housing or Section 8 housing. So a neat thing about Section 42 for our area, Olmsted County, it's one of the higher AMI counties in the whole country. The Mayo Clinic's here, so there's lots of physicians and nurses and other professionals. So if you look at the cost of housing here versus the area median income, it's one of the more affordable areas in terms of that ratio. And so as a result, a one income household has an income limit for at 60% of average median income, which is what this project is, of $47,000 per year. So if you were single and you made less than $47,000 per year, you would be eligible to live in this community. That's a really, really high number compared to most Section 42 communities in the country. And that gives you just a lot of options. So in a lot of Section 42 areas, if you're in a really high cost of living area that has a relatively low income, so I'll say Washington, D.C., for example, extraordinarily expensive housing there, and the incomes, the average income is not necessarily high enough to kind of compensate that for that, to offset that. Basically, the only people you can rent to in a Section 42 housing community are people that are on government assistance. So people that are actually on a Section 8, housing voucher. So your Section 42 property ends up really becoming kind of a Section 8 property. In Olmsted County, that's just not the case. So it's very easy to go find a good living wage job where you're making, $20 to $25 an hour, and you're still well under this income threshold here. And then there's something else kind of interesting. So think about this for just a moment. AMI tables come out every year. So what they do is they compute the average median income for each county in the country, and then these tables, HUD and FHA and stuff, propagate this data, and they say you have to be at 60% of this number. But what's happening right now in the country to incomes everywhere? So go ahead and throw it into chat there. It looks like we have chat working now. Thank goodness. Thanks for your help there, Rachel. What's happening to incomes in the country right now? Incomes are going way, way up. That's right. And what's happening to the cost of housing? It's going way, way up. So in some areas, we've seen market rate housing go up by 30, 40% rent growth, because Section 42 housing is based off of AMI tables, and those AMI tables are a year or two behind because those income numbers need to go up and those housing cost numbers need to go up. Then the government needs to survey that data. That needs to promulgate those tables. It needs to tell everyone in the country what those tables are. That means that the rents on Section 42 properties in the whole country are about to go way up. Those income and rent amount restrictions are about to go way up. So if you were to go buy a bunch of Section 42 properties right now, again, your properties are based off of your net operating income and the capitalization rate. So how much income is your property generating? Well, those market rate properties, their values have really taken off because those rental rates have really taken off. The cost of housing has gone up. But those Section 42 properties, they're on like a 1 to 2 year latency from the market rate housing. So if you just went out and bought a bunch of Section 42 properties, you have built in huge value increases that haven't yet been realized. And we're not particularly clever people to figure this out. We just, we looked at, okay, these tables are a year or two behind, and these income numbers are going up like crazy right now. These housing cost numbers are going up like crazy right now. The value of these Section 42 communities, it's not reflective yet because your rental rates can't go up yet, but they will be able to go up a lot in the future. It's a very simple kind of math that you need to do. And then there's another kind of interesting component to these Section 42 deals. So again, you typically have that 30-year-long LURA, that land use restriction agreement. That first 15 years, you get that subsidy. In the second 15 years, you don't. At the end of that second 15 years, the LURA goes away and it becomes market rate housing. So I would estimate that at market rate, these units would be worth about $200,000 per unit in today's dollars. So literally, if we did not improve anything at all about the property, we just waited out the LURA, the property would double in value when that LURA expires. And these properties are generally considered to be kind of the least desirable properties in the industry, in the multifamily industry. People like them in that first 15-year period when they're getting that tax credit, and it's easy to be profitable even if you're not really generating, even if you're not managing the property well and generating a lot of income. And then those Section 42 properties, they're in the second half of the period. You can buy them at steep discounts. Typically, the original developer that builds it, they'll keep it for the first 15 years or sell it to like one ownership group who then keeps it for the 15 years. And then once that tax credit goes away, they typically sell the deal to someone else and they sell it at a steep discount. And the properties are not typically renovated. The typical buyer is someone that is just going to kind of ride out that existing set of finishes from going on 30 years before. And they're not particularly high-end finishes, and some of the residents tend to be especially hard on them. So these properties just get really worn out, and these are some of the cheapest deals you can buy in all of multifamily housing. And we think that it doesn't have to be this way. If you can buy these properties at steep discounts and renovate them just like you would a market rate apartment building, we think it's possible to add massive value to these properties, to operate them like a market rate housing community. And we think we can change what it means to be a Section 42 property, change what it means to be a Section 42 management company. And this is going to be reflected in all that we do. So the way most Section 42 properties are operated today, they get a lot of their lead flow for incoming tenants from like government subsidized programs and from referrals of residents who live there. And we're going to take the exact opposite approach. So we have this huge net of leads that comes in for our big portfolio that we have here in Rochester. And, if someone, inquires about one of our properties, we're going to say, hey, are you within the income guidelines for Douglas Trail? And if they're in those income guidelines, we're going to say, hey, you just won the lottery. You're eligible for this, this fantastic deal on housing that you probably weren't even aware of. And we're going to be able to connect, a really premium tenant that may not, ordinarily even be aware that they're eligible for this type of housing with a community that we operate just like you'd operate a market rate housing community. And I think we're going to change the game on Section 42. I think there's going to be people from around the state, around the country touring Douglas Trail, asking us how the heck did we make this kind of change happen? That's my vision. Maybe we're a little bit starry-eyed about it, but when we run the numbers, there's just no reason that we can't run it this way. We're purchasing this at such a price with such a favorable loan that even with modest increases in rents, we're going to be able to easily cover the renovation costs of this property. The idea that you go in and renovate a Section 42 property without the government paying you to do so is really weird. Let me say it that way. The expectation is that these properties just kind of deteriorate over time. They just get kind of casually neglected. And it's insulting to me. It's insulting to me. When you drive one of these communities, you just get this feeling, hey, this is like a low-income community, right? You shouldn't feel that way. I grew up in Section 8 housing. I did not have great means as a young child, and I know exactly what it's like to be, how those tenants are treated. You're a commodity, and you're a burden, and you're lucky to get housing at all. And I think that we can change the mindset that people grow up in when they grow up in these communities. And Douglas Trail, it's the start of something very big indeed. So that's just a kind of a deep dive into Section 42, what Section 42 looks like, and why that's so exciting to us. So there was a question from one person here: because AMI is delayed and incomes are going up, will this exclude many tenants currently in the unit and lead to increased vacancy before the new AMI is released? Great question. So during the first 15-year period, you have to re-verify people's incomes on a routine basis. But if you are in the second 15-year period, that's when you're not getting that tax subsidy payment, and the property, you can buy them for a low price. They're not very desirable. You don't have to verify people's income during that period. So, if someone, let's say someone was a fellow, or I'm sorry, someone coming in for fellowship, there's a halfway decent chance they might actually qualify for that income limit, depending on their situation, depending on their household size and some different. So if you had like a fellow that had a partner who had not yet found employment and they had a kid, they could be making like $65,000 per year in our county, because our county has such high AMI, and still qualify. And then the following year, they complete that fellowship and they become an attending. They could have a 6-figure income and still be eligible to live there. So these are the kind of tenants that we're going to seek out to try to interleave with kind of your traditional residents in affordable housing in a way that disrupts as few people as possible. And then, in case you're wondering, so let's say we do have a Section 8 tenant there and the rent goes up. The way Section 8 works is you can't charge a Section 8 tenant more than you charge a market rate tenant, but you can charge up to whatever their limit is. In our area, for a 3-bed, it's like $1,800 per month. It's an extraordinarily high number, and the Section 8 voucher will pick up that difference. So depending on that individual situation, their monthly payment actually doesn't change. It's just the voucher payment that changes. So very concretely, let's say their rent is $1,000 per month, and we're able to make renovations to the units, and we're able to raise the quote unquote market rate, or the public rate that we're charging everyone, to $1,400 per month. That does not reduce any existing tenants' eligibility to stay. And in 99% of cases, for people that are there on a Section 8 voucher, that does not reduce their ability to stay either. They are living in a higher quality community. They're probably never going to leave and think themselves lucky to be there. And their monthly payment doesn't change one bit. And you'd think like the local Section 8 office might be upset about that, and they are not. What the Section 8 office here struggles with is low quality landlords. I mean, we actually brought in the leadership from Olmsted County Housing Assistance to meet with our leadership team in our office and brainstorm ways. So that they have a pilot program where individuals that are on case management from the county qualify for kind of like a special subsidy outside of Section 8. And they are very excited to have us pilot that program. So if they can pull into Douglas Trail and see the rents have gone up, but it's a higher quality living experience that's going to pull up those Section 8 people and help them get off of Section 8, help them find a better job and improve their life. Like these are things like everyone is going to be celebrating this. So I mean, it may not be such an idyllic outcome. Let me be honest, it may not be so perfect, but we have really, really, really carefully done our due diligence here to make sure that when we go in and make a big change to a Section 42 community like this, the way we would make a change to a market rate community, it's not going to have a deleterious impact on the tenants. It's not going to put them into a situation where they're no longer eligible for that housing. So that's a business plan that we thought very, very carefully about, and we are incredibly excited about. All right, a couple other questions there I'll get to at the end here, but so excellent question about Section 42. So let's talk about rental rates. We're going to be making crazy changes, huge improvements to this community. The in-place rents are extraordinarily low. So for an 850 square foot, 2-bed, 1.5 bath, 1-car attached townhome right now, the average in-place rental rate is about $875 per month. Just as a point of comparison here, we'll go pull up another townhome community. So this is not like a particularly high rent community. This is another Section 42 townhome community that's just down the road from this one. It's a dead-on comp. This is Georgetown Homes. You can see they even have the exact same countertops, the exact same appliances, the exact same cabinets. It's probably the same builder that constructed them. And you can see that they actually have 0 vacancies for their tax credit units here. So that's what these are here, these tax credit units. And then they're at $1,100 a month and $1,300 a month for their 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. So we're guessing we might be able to get about $1,300 and $1,400 a month, because when we're done, these are going to be radically superior units to those near comparable units there. So we're literally projecting only a $100 rent premium over this next door neighbor that does not have those improvements in place. We're going to make the place a lot more pet friendly. So there's very few pets there, which is kind of crazy to me, given all the green space and the huge square footages in these units. The rental limits, the Section 42 rental limits for these units is about $1,740 per month. So to give you some perspective on that for the 3-bed units. So we're still nowhere near those caps. And that's pretty unusual. A lot of times these Section 42 properties, again, if you're in kind of an area where housing is less affordable, like your rental rate just is the cap. But in our area, because incomes are so high, we're nowhere near that cap, which tells me that we can operate this more like a market rate community, where we're able to collect a rent premium if we deliver a premium living experience, premium customer service, we make renovations, and we have a premium product. So this is an incredible delta in rents, a 40% swing in rental rate. But when we look at other projects in the market, other properties that are available in this segment, really need to spend about $1,600 to get something that's market rate that's even remotely comparable. So we feel really strong about this rent projection here. I think we're going to hit these rental projections very easily. When you're able to have a 40% swing on rental rates, when you're doing $1 million value add plan like that, it has a huge impact on the bottom line. So at closing, we're actually still at a 6% cash on cash. We're just paying such an extraordinarily low price, kind of per pound, per square foot, per unit for this project. And we have such extraordinarily good financing that even with those really, really low rental rates, we're still going to hit a 6% cash on cash rate of return out of the gate, with $163K in annual cash flow coming from about $640K in NOI. And then if you look at where I think we'll be, probably less than a year from now, maybe it's as long as 18 months from now, but probably less than a year from now, we will be well north of $1 million NOI. We will almost double the NOI on this project. No joke. Income's going to go from 1.1 million to 1.6, 1.7 million. We're gonna have just an absolutely incredible financial outcome on this particular project. I've got a more complex pro forma I'll pull up here very briefly. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but you can see just taking a quick look at this pro forma here. We've verified the actual taxes. So the in-place insurance is about $44,000 per year. And so this is just a really kind of fun microcosm we can look at for just a moment. So you get some insight in how we're able to achieve these incredible outcomes that we're able to achieve. So this would be kind of like a normal insurance cost for this property. So our first quote was about $43,000 after all the kind of discounts and deductions that we were able to negotiate. But then we asked, what other discounts could we get? And they said, well, this property, because it's such a huge campus, it doesn't have like a central fire alarm system, security system. There's no central monitoring. And I said, so what would it take for us to get that discount? They're like, well, it needs to be centrally monitored. We want to see lots of different kind of monitors and alarms. It's possible something as simple as like a Simply Safe system that we locate in that central clubhouse area with kind of out-facing vision that's centrally monitored would meet the requirements for that discount. And that would reduce our insurance rate all the way down to $38,000 per year. And that may not sound like a huge amount of money, but if we do just some really quick math here, so 43,000 minus 38,000 is $5,000. And if we divide that by probably like a 6 cap on this particular property, that's a $300,000 in value. I'm sorry, I did that math wrong there. There we go. Divided by 0.06. That seemed way too good there. There we go. Okay, $83,000 of value. So let's say we go spend like $5,000 or $10,000 on a pretty good security system, fire alarm system with a little bit of central monitoring that costs us $20 a month or whatever. We can add on the difference. We can add like $60,000 of value to this community, and that's just one little one tiny little cell in this spreadsheet. So every single bucket here, we're always looking for ways that we can improve our financial outcomes. So right now, if you look at the tax assessed value on the property, it's actually being assessed at a value higher than what we're paying for it, which is a pretty unusual thing. We're just getting such an insanely good deal on this property that we can actually go back to the tax assessor and say, hey, can you help us out with the taxes? And because we are a Section 42 property, the assessor has some additional leeway. They might even discount us to a number lower than our purchase price, just to be kind to a provider of affordable housing. When we look at optimizing our utilities, there's a lot of kind of tricks up our sleeves. So we haven't penciled into this pro forma, but right now there's one water meter serving each 4-unit building, and it has all the equipment right there that's possible. We could split that out into separate meters for water for each individual unit. Anytime you're able to sub-meter, anytime you're able to add meters like that, all the studies show that utilization goes way down. So it's good for the environment. It's good for the economics for everyone involved. It's just a good thing all around. And then we're going to look at ways we can optimize basically our total kind of grounds cost. We've got another townhome community nearby, and can we use the same vendor on both townhome communities? It's something we could even do in-house as we grow our portfolio. There's lots of opportunities there. And that's kind of interesting when you look at the current admin and management plus payroll. It's $222,000 of expense. And with our management cost, we're currently penciling in $113,000 for management, because we have that all-in management fee. We get paid when we increase the revenue of the site. We don't get paid just for staffing the office. So our management fee goes up as we increase the income of the asset. We have this huge financial incentive in our property management company to deliver performance to the asset. So we're gonna realize a massive reduction in the management cost of that property on day one. We're going to cut the management cost of that property in half on day one. And then if we knock it out of the park and we really ratchet up revenue on the property, then our income for our property management company goes way up. So I love the alignment of incentives with our unique revenue model for our property management company. Those are just a few of the line items. I don't want to spend a lot of time kind of digging into this, but that's from a high level what the pro formas look like on this particular property. They're some of the most exciting pro formas I've looked at in about 9 months here since Nicholas and Oliver probably. So we're really excited about what the pro forma looks like on this particular property. We mentioned this on one of our recent community hours. So Rochester was just voted the #3 place to live in the entire country. It's just an incredible place to live. My wife and I, we've been traveling a little bit recently. We just went to a big Tony Robbins conference here last week. We were there for, it's 8 a.m. to midnight for 5 days straight. You're doing 80 hours of content in less than a week. It's incredibly intense. But anytime we visit these places, we remember that traffic exists. There's just no traffic in Rochester. They solved that problem 30 years ago or something. I don't know. I just have never had the experience in Rochester of like waiting for another car to go somewhere. And other cities, there is traffic. And, I mentioned how, the area median income is quite high in Rochester, and it makes the housing, relatively affordable. There's just so many livability things about Rochester. Certainly access to excellent healthcare. That's one of the things that keeps Elaine and I here as we're having children. The level of care that we receive here is just absolutely staggering at the Mayo Clinic. So we love this market. It's a fantastic place to live, and Douglas Trail enjoys that incredible place to be located as well. As I said, this is in Black Swan Funds 2. So if you'd like to invest, go to blackswanfund2.com. So we're about 2/3 of the way through that capital raise right now. I think 19 million, somewhere in that territory, is funded at this time. We have about 32 million in total commits. So we're theoretically overcommitted, but a good chunk of those people, a third of those people have not remitted funds yet. So it's first come, first serve. So it's tough to say exactly when that could fill up. Theoretically, it could fill up, in the next week or two. Maybe it'll take a month or two. We've been doing this for a while, and we found that it tends to pick up pace as it gets nearer and nearer to being full, and that opportunity is not open anymore. So if you would like to invest, I'd recommend investing now, because I suspect that it will fill up very quickly here as we get to the kind of the last 10 million, so to speak, for that fund. And the portfolio of properties in this fund is it's incredible. Douglas Trail, the residences of City Hall. We have this 12 townhome community. Shoot, I haven't even talked to you about that. So we have this 12-unit townhome community that we got under contract. We haven't had time to do a webinar on it, but it slots in perfectly with Douglas Trail. So it's identical construction style, identical construction date, or no, they're a little bit older, but when we're done, they'll be almost identical. So leads that come in for Douglas Trail, if they're over that income limit, they can go to this other townhome community. And there's one other Section 42 townhome community that we're trying to purchase now. It's only 32 units or 24 units, one or the other. It's small enough that it's not super desirable on its own, but in conjunction with Douglas Trail, it's going to be a powerhouse. So Douglas Trail will be able to bring in those leads, and then if Douglas Trail is full, then we can refer them out to this other townhome community. So we're actually going to pick up probably like 150 townhomes or 140 townhomes, kind of in one package. These webinars run too long. I could spend a lot of time talking about that. Just my point is, there is a lot of cool stuff in Fund 2. Tanara Villa, we're going to close on probably September 9th. So we've got just a couple of weeks left as we wrap up all the details on the loan and stuff. And Tanara Villa is just, we're going to increase the value of that place by 50% at least. Just an incredible location there. I was actually just visiting City Hall today with the appraiser, and the beauty of that, roaring 20s construction is it never loses its charm or its shine with me. So just incredible portfolio of assets in Fund 2. So if you're excited to invest in Douglas Trail, Fund 2 is the way to get in. I'd recommend that you commit now while we still have room in the fund. And then for a fun announcement here, save the date. Our real estate real life conference was so incredibly successful that we've already announced our 2023 date. So September 15th to 17th, we're going to have our conference here. It was such an incredible blast having all of our investors come out, visit, tour assets, see before and after renovations, visit Main Street where their money's going. We're so proud of the fact that we've taken, $50 million out of Wall Street and put it into Main Street. And then, to take it up several more notches, to have those investors come visit Main Street and come see the Main Street that's better because of their investment dollars. We had lots of teaching and speaking and networking and a lot of mindset stuff. And then having just an open bar and amazing food and stuff at the number one rated Hilton in the entire world, which happens to be here in Rochester, is the number one rated Hilton for 2022. That doesn't hurt as well. Having a nice place to have a party. We're going to have it at the exact same venue. Everyone had just so much fun, and we can't wait to do it again. So make sure to register for Black Swan Real Estate Real Life. Save the date, and we'll have an early bird ticket available here in the near future. It is going to be a blowout fun time. Rachel just put a link in there for the wait list there in chat. So make sure you check that out. Okay. So let's answer some questions here. First question from Rich. I'm new to the Black Swan Fund. If possible, at the end of the presentation, could you go over some of the general questions? Specifically, we invest in, okay. So I apologize. Let's dive into this one. Okay. Specifically, do we invest into just this project, or is investing in all the projects in Fund 2 simultaneously? So you're investing in all the projects. So that's a huge advantage of a private equity fund. So from our perspective, the fund is hugely advantageous because when you go to acquire an asset, if you are in a situation where you need to like raise the capital after you get it under contract, you have a pretty huge disadvantage against any private equity fund that's already funded. So when we go to the bargaining table with a seller and we say we have 15 or 20 million dollars of cash in the bank right now, I mean, it's kind of obnoxious, but we will send them like a screenshot of the bank account. Here's 15 or 20 million of cash just right now. Let's make a deal. There's a different level of salience to your offer. So it's hugely advantageous from that perspective. It's also very advantageous from a perspective that, for a long time, we would do like joint venture partnerships. So we'd get a group of investors together for this deal, group of investors together for this deal. We'd often have, a lot more people who wanted to get involved than we had opportunities. So, there's someone who, for whatever reason, timing, they couldn't get into this deal, then they couldn't get into this one, they couldn't get into this one. And 6 months later, they're frustrated that they haven't been able to get into a deal. And it was challenging for us to try to play matchmaker there. So the fund is a great way for us to not only, have way more buying power, but also be able to just serve our investors in a more, kind of egalitarian way that reduces the number of unmet expectations. I find that unmet expectations are the essence of unhappiness, and the economies of scale are just kind of off the charts. So, here's a really basic example. Like you saw, there's a million appliances. We do appliance rodeos, so we're renovating this apartment building over here, and it's got a ton of extra appliances because we're upgrading to stainless steel appliances here. Douglas Trail has white appliances. Well, a lot of the white appliances that we're upgrading here are perfectly good, and they could go to Douglas Trail. Except if one partnership group owns this asset and one partnership group owns this asset, how does that work? So like, does this one sell the used white appliances to this asset? And then who pays for for our maintenance guy to transport them, install them? And then what happens if the appliance arrives and it doesn't work? Obviously you like get a refund or something for the charge paid for that appliance. But then who pays for the maintenance guy time? Because we had to transport it and set it up. And then like one out of 10 times, I swear these appliances don't work when we hook them up again. If they're all in one bucket, like just all that goes away, all those kind of efficiencies or inefficiencies and overheads go away. And we're able to just, okay, here's like 100 free appliances that we just put in a storage unit on site at Douglas Trail. And now Douglas Trail has infinite, new used white appliances. So that's a huge advantage to having one big bucket of capital to work with in the private equity fund. Second question there, after the principal investment is paid back, how long does the project usually continue to generate passive income for investors? So Elaine and I, we used to say we've never sold a property before, but we just sold our first property. We actually just sold the home on Paeter Drive. This was the first home that Elaine and I lived in together in Oklahoma. We had 3 houses in Oklahoma, and it kind of is a little gut wrenching from a sentimental perspective, but from a business perspective, it really made no sense for us to keep those properties. Basically we sold them for kind of emotional focus reasons, not necessarily for business reasons, but sincerely, we've never sold an asset before. So our expectation is that we're going to hold these assets indefinitely. At some point in the future, they will be sold. You can't keep them forever, but you can pass them down to your kids. If your kids and your grandkids still held these assets, that would be just an incredibly spiritually beautiful thing to us. For people who are new here, who haven't kind of seen the fund model. It's really simple. We call it the lemonade stand model. If you were to open a lemonade stand with your kid, this might be the business model you use. So 100% of the profits from the whole venture go to our capital partners until they get a full return of capital. And then it's a 50-50 split after that. There's no fees. There's no acquisition fee, asset management fee, capital event fee, disposition fee. Many of these typical funds that we see, it's possible for the active partners to make money while the passive partners are losing money. And we just don't think that's right. And if we're successful, we're going to totally change the game. We're going to change the emotions that are conjured up when you hear the word, private equity fund mentioned. We see the good that this money is doing in our community, and we want to do more and more of that good. And we do that by putting the needs of our tenants first, by putting the needs of our investors first. And we know that if we do that, everything else is going to take care of itself. So if you have more questions about the fund, we'd love to answer those questions. And I'm just double checking to make sure I did in fact answer that question after principal investments on how long. So, for the indefinite future, hopefully, 20, 30 years from now, we still hold these assets. At some point they will be sold. We can't tell you exactly when that will be, but we don't have like a 5-year hold period, in our fund model. Okay. Next question here from Katan. Hello, I am a newer investor with Black Swan. How much additional rent can you charge with the washer dryer built into units? So there's a huge, off the cuff, I can say $50 a month, right? I can just say that. Maybe it's $100 a month, but there's really a quality issue here. So even regardless of rental rate, in our experience, the buildings that have in-unit laundry, they just get a radically higher quality tenant than the buildings that don't. The buildings that have in-unit laundry get better tenant quality than the ones that don't. And so as a result, we really want to get in-unit laundry into every single one of our buildings, any way possible. In this case, it's going to be relatively feasible. It's part of the whole package. So right now, Douglas Trail is probably just about the cheapest, kind of rental option in all of Rochester. And we really like to position ourselves as a premium brand. I think that it's totally feasible for us to position ourselves as a premium brand within the Section 42 class or segment. Maybe that's going to sound a little bit crazy, but I think it's totally possible. And we've seen a couple of operators who are doing that successfully in some cases. We think we can reproduce that success. And you have to have in-unit laundry to have a premium product. It's like having a front door or something like that. You just have to have that in-unit laundry. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Is we find that we get a big drop in quality, and then it kind of unlocks rental rates. So we find that people shopping for housing is an exclusionary process. Shopping for housing is an exclusionary process. When I'm helping someone buy a home, they say, I can't have a home that's on a busy road. I can't have a home that does, it has to have at least a 2-car garage. I can't have a home in the wrong school district. And when you add up this kind of Venn diagram of exclusionary criteria, you get this. It's rarely an inclusive search of like, I want this color house, or I want this particular floor plan, or something of that nature. And in-unit laundry is just a huge item on that list. And so we survey our prospective tenants and we say, what are the exclusionary criteria that you have? What makes a deal breaker? Oh, if there's no dishwasher, that's a deal breaker for me. Or if there's no in-unit laundry, that's a deal breaker for me. And once you kind of hit all those criteria, the rental rate you can charge goes way up. So if you are hitting some of those exclusionary criteria, you're in a totally different price strata than if you kind of check all those boxes. And then, at that point, now you're in a situation where you're competing on are your countertops a nicer shade of quartz or that kind of thing? You have knockout amenities. We don't typically compete in that segment, but we make sure that, hopefully all of our properties, hit those kind of minimum criteria, minimum exclusionary criteria that most people are shopping for there. Katan just had a follow-up question. Do you have to allocate additional funds for wear and tear, crime, et cetera, with this type of housing? Do you have to allocate additional funds? What does that, can you clarify that just a little bit? What would be the additional funds that you'd need to allocate? Oh, are the tenants, do the tenants put like more wear on the units than in like a non-section 42 property? Capped. So there's restrictions on how much income people can make, and that's based on the size of their family. And then there's also restrictions on how much you can charge for rent. And basically people can't spend more than, if you divide their income by 2.5, that's kind of like the maximum rent that you can charge. So if it's 47K, if you divide that by 12 to get from an annual income to a monthly income, and then you divide that by 2.5, that'll give you kind of your rent cap. So are there additional CapEx funds? So I would say that speaks to my desire to change the game. So I would say it's a common belief that's held that Section 42 properties, they need to be very utilitarian, that they're just going to get beat up. I can't tell how many times in my career I've heard someone say it's just a rental. Well, we've proven that that's not true. We don't have to repaint our units every time we turn them over. We don't have to replace the carpet every time we turn them over. We just renovate them with really premium flooring that never needs to be replaced. And we use high quality paint that's very durable, so you don't have to repaint the unit. And it's my belief that in a Section 42 community, you probably are going to have some elevated amount of wear and tear or capital expenditure, but nowhere near as much as I think is popularly practiced. So you get into what's called a negative feedback loop of capital expenditure, in my experience. So you do the cheap thing, and as a result of that, you have to do that cheap thing a lot more often. So you put flat paint in your apartment units because, it's Section 42, people are going to beat it up, you're going to have to repaint it every turn. Well, if you get cheap flat paint, yeah, of course you're going to have to. It scuffs and gets marks real easily. So we put in really high quality, eggshell sheen paint that costs, the paint itself costs many times what kind of that cheap flat paint is that you typically find in some of these communities. And so as a result, we don't have to put in that elevated CapEx amount. So there is absolutely some amount of delta there, some additional CapEx or maintenance expenditure that goes with operating an affordable housing community. But I don't think it has to be anywhere near as much as what is popularly seen in the industry right now. Great question. So I am so impressed by all that I'm hearing so far. Well, thank you, Tox. How much of Black Swan's money is being invested in this deal? Can you speak a bit more about the mitigation plan for inflation on this deal? Also, has BS had a capital call? Thanks. Yeah, so these are very common questions that we get about the fund all the time. So we're going to be super transparent that our goal at the closing table is that Elaine and I won't have personal capital in the deal. We shoulder pursuit costs. And if a deal were to fall through, and there was a direct loss from that, Elaine and I would shoulder that. But our goal is that the capital from the fund is 100% of the capital in the deal at the closing table. Once the deal has been de-risked and it's closed, we do sign on the note for recourse. So there's a huge, kind of smoke and mirrors game out there, and a lot of funds, a lot of syndications where the general partners might say, "Oh, we're going to put X% of the capital in the deal," and at the last minute they step back and say, "Oh, sorry, there's been such overwhelming interest, we had to step back to create more opportunity for our investors," or they charge fees, and then those fees become the capital into the deal. And then, of course, they typically don't sign on recourse for the note. So like in a typical syndication, you might see the general partner put in, a few $100,000, and Elaine and I are going to sign on, $10 million of debt for this deal. So if this deal were to fail, Elaine and I have quite a bit of skin in the game, as the expression goes. And because we're willing to sign on the note, because we're willing to put our name behind the project, we're able to get radically superior loan terms that allow us to deliver, radically superior performance and returns to our investors. So we could kind of speak to that point at length. But that's it right there. And I would encourage you to think about this really critically. So, Elena, we have several $1 million in cash and liquidity on hand right now. I believe that's a basic, article of discipline. I drive a 2012 Honda Odyssey with a salvage title. There's a lot of discretionary expenses that we forgo, while simultaneously having, several million dollars of cash in the bank. Because if there were a rainy day, if we were to need that liquidity, we need to be there for our investors. We need to be there to backstop our projects with that liquidity if it ever does come to it. And if for some reason we ever were to have a capital raise shortfall, we need to have that capital ready to close on that deal as well. So would you really want your GP putting their liquidity into the deal and then they lose that margin of safety when there could be a rainy day? So just something to think critically about as an LP there. And then the second part of that question there was, sorry, I think I missed it here. There we go. Mitigation plan for inflation on this deal. So inflation is your friend in real estate investment. It's going to be kind of the safest, harbor for capital. Any kind of hard asset that is pegged to inflation, that's indexed to inflation, does well when there's periods of high inflation. And then the assets that do extraordinarily well are the ones that you can leverage. So like gold, it's pretty good. It doesn't deliver cash flow. Its value goes up during times of inflation. So it's perceived to be, to protect you from inflation, but it doesn't deliver cash flow and it's hard to effectively leverage. So from that perspective, it's not great. So it's a nice safety mechanism or liquidity mechanism if you have, actual physical gold coins or something like that. But real estate is quite a bit better because you get paper debt. So we are getting some pretty phenomenal paper debt on Douglas Trail here at a very low interest rate. So right now, inflation, the annualized producer price index, last time I saw it, was at about 17%. So year over year, if you annualize that out through the rest of the year, the growth in producer prices, so the raw input costs to factories and stuff like that are the upstream drivers of CPI of the consumer price index. So the goods that are being manufactured today are the goods that are being consumed 6 months from now. And if it's 17% more expensive for those producers to make things today, it's probably going to be 17% more expensive for consumers to consume those things 6 months from now. So I try to always look upstream when I'm trying to tease out trends of that sort. CPI is technically only running at 8%, somewhere in that territory, but I'm not sure if that's truly the case or not. So in that case, real estate is going to be running at double-digit appreciation to keep pace with inflation. That's just how real estate works. So if we're getting debt at 4.85%, we're essentially printing money. We have inflation working to our advantage to a double digit. There's a double-digit spread potentially between the interest rate on our loan and what the actual inflation rate is out there. Now, at some point, it's possible that interest rates will need to go up to bring down inflation. And I love all the things that Biden is doing on the global stage right now. I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm 39 years old. The United States is the leader of the free world. For the first time since the Berlin Wall fell. But when I see inflation running crazy and there's student loan forgiveness, I've got lots of student loans that I wish was forgiven, but I wince a little bit because I just see interest rates just went up by a point. Literally, I mean that's how the economics works here. So it's possible that there could be 10% interest rates or something like that a year from now. I think that's pretty unlikely. That's not the number that that anyone is really pricing in right now. That's not the number if you look at like 10-year treasury rates and stuff like that. That's not the number you see there. It seems like rates are going to run up to maybe 6%, at very worst. And our protection there is by getting fixed rate debt. So most of the debt packages that are out there, the non-recourse options are variable rate. And there's instruments you can buy, caps, to try to limit that rate from going up, or you get debt instruments with ceilings and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're higher risk instruments in a climate where interest rates can go up. And by getting debt that's at a fixed rate, it's hard to get. We had to work our hearts out to get this debt, but we are locked in for 5 years at 4.85%. So we might be able to cash out refi 2 years from now, but if interest rates are at 10%, we're going to say that 5% debt's looking pretty good. Maybe we're going to hold out on that cash out refi. And meanwhile, If interest rates ran up to, these super high levels, that tells us that inflation has been on a tear for a while, and our real estate values have probably appreciated in a dramatic way. An example of a situation I wouldn't want to be in is I would not want to do build for sale. I would not touch build for sale with a 10-foot pole right now, because when interest rates are running super hot, people can't afford to purchase housing. The price is potentially going to go down. But build for rent, I think that's a perfectly good, good strategy, especially if you have some sort of, longitudinal fixed rate debt instrument that'll let you get through that period of high interest rates. Hopefully I've been able to thoroughly answer your question there. Mitigation plan for inflation. I don't want to mitigate inflation on this deal. I want inflation to run, hopefully not too much, but inflation is a good thing for real estate investors, because the unique way that you have this hard asset that's pegged to inflation, that generates cash flow, that is then leveraged by paper debt that goes down in value as inflation runs. Also, has Black Swan ever had a capital call? No, we have not. And there is no mandatory capital call provision in Fund 2. So there is an option for a voluntary capital call. We've never had a capital call, and Elaine and I would be the first ones to step in. As I mentioned, we have several $1 million of liquidity. It's literally just sitting there to make sure that if the worst were to happen, we've got plenty of money to make payroll, to pay our staff. And just in case one of our assets, we needed to come to defend one of our assets if there was, some sort of natural disaster and the insurance didn't pay or something of that nature. And we really want to be able to keep saying that we've never had a capital call so we can keep raising money. So we're well incentivized to do so here. All right, lots of great questions here. The next question, this is an anonymous question. Does it make a big difference if I invest in Fund 2 when it first came out versus now, or within the next couple of weeks, i.e. when our first disbursement occurs, or will everything be the same for all investors regardless of when the investment occurred? Excellent question. So most funds of this size, most $30 million funds, they take a little time to raise. It's not uncommon for a fund to be open for a year to fill a fund of this size. We're working with lots of other people out there in the funds, kind of universe, and coaches and peers, and they're kind of blown away at how quickly our fund is raised. I mean, I think the reason's simple. We put our investors first. We don't charge any fees or splits. 100% of the profit goes to our investors until we get a penny of profit from the fund. So mathematically, it's the best it can possibly get for an investor. And I think that whenever you just shower the people you do business with in abundance, good things happen to you. But the nice thing about that is we don't have to worry too much about, treating capital differently depending on when it comes in. So the very first, dollar of capital came in only 10 weeks ago. We haven't closed on a single asset yet, and we're getting assets under contract at approximately the same rate that the money's coming in, which I'm going to say there's a little bit of luck, a little bit of skill there, but we're nailing it on timing for Fund 2 so far. So what that means is there's no reason why we would need to give kind of preferential treatment to capital that came in first or last, because it's a really short time frame, and no returns have been generated from the fund. So with our model, we don't expect there to be profit going back to the investors for the first year, because we're placing that capital, running our value add playbook. We're not generating cash flow. In a lot of funds and syndications, the general partners will sometimes over raise capital so that they can then return capital to kind of generate the appearance of cash flow. But intuitively, it should make sense to you that when you're buying like a deep value add apartment building and vacating units, and you're not collecting rent on those units while they're vacated, so you can renovate them, you're spending money on renovations, like it shouldn't be delivering cash flow. So whatever profit you're receiving, it's really just your money being given back to you, which just dilutes returns for the whole pool, for the whole vehicle. So we don't do it that way. Year one, it's not expected there's going to be a lot of proceeds, and then our target is to get a full return of capital by the end of year 5. Historically, it's never taken us more than 3 years, but the end outcome of that is it's a rounding error, kind of whose capital went in first versus last. So there's no different treatment there. Excellent question, anonymous attendee. And then we've got a couple more questions here. So if you have any further questions, throw them in the chat, and I'm happy to happy to spend as much time as you like answering these questions as thoroughly as possible. So, what do you require as proof for accredited investor status? Do you have an idea of the profile of current tenants? There's a couple different questions here. What do you require as proof of accredited status? So if you work with like a CPA or an attorney, they have the license to produce a verification letter that just says, I'm Nick Stoggeberg. I am a Talks attorney. I am very familiar with his finances, and I know that he meets the requirements to be an accredited investor. That's a really convenient, vehicle, that letter, because I don't want to see any of your personal financial information. That's not a good thing for you or for I. So one of your, kind of qualified third-party advisors can attest to that if they have appropriate license to do so. And then if for some reason you don't have a professional that's able to deliver that letter for you, you can go to Parallel Markets or Verify Investors. Parallel Markets or Verify Investor to verify your accredited status. That's no charge to you, and you upload tax statements, bank statements, retirement account, brokerage statements. And then, a human goes and reviews those things, and then we'll produce that form letter for you. And then you can upload that directly to the portal or email it to us, whatever's easier for you. And if you want, we can send you kind of a boilerplate letter as well. If for some reason, like your attorney or your accountant does not have a boilerplate letter on file. And we do not need to verify your accredited investor status until after you've funded. So we just have to, make every possible effort to verify that status in a reasonable amount of time after you have funded your commitment. So at any point in that process, you can fund it. If, let's say 90 days goes by and we're still not able to verify that status, we're obligated to return your capital to you, but we don't have to wait for that accredited verification before you can sign your paperwork and remit funds. So there's a little bit of flexibility there. Next question there. Do you have an idea of the profile of current tenants? That is, would most of them have to leave the property to be filled with the eligible tenants? So I'm thinking about that carefully. I would be surprised if more than, I guess probably about half of the tenants would be likely to stay. If I was to totally just like pull a number out of the air, our goal is for as many tenants as possible to stay. So what we do is we go to every single tenant. We try to have a one-on-one conversation with them. A lot of people who do what we do, they, I don't know, they're trying to kind of be a little cagey about it. They don't, you never tell the tenants that the asset is selling. You never tell them that rents are going up. You never tell them that you're renovating. Well, they can see the work crews and they know that rents are going to go up. Like these people are smart. So we're just very transparent with them. We say, listen, we're going to be making some huge improvements to the community. There have been some issues where people fell way behind in rent on COVID, and the previous ownership group just did not know how to cope with that. So we're going to be remediating those delinquencies. You have to pay rent to live here, and so you might see notices to pay or quit posted on a lot of doors, and we're sorry about that. But you can see just from looking around that the previous owners were not collecting enough rent to properly maintain the property. And so they had to sell. They didn't want to sell, they had to sell. And we are here to make this property even more beautiful than when it was brand new. That's our goal. But as a result of that, rents are going to go up. Is this something that makes you feel fearful, or is this something that excites you? How do you feel in this moment? We are here for you. We love you. We care about you. We want to serve you. If you're excited about that, we want to get you into the first renovated unit. Hell, you can help pick out the fixtures and the paint color and that sort of thing. We want to have an open house and show it off. And then we have the ability to then renovate your unit when you move into the new renovated unit. So like right now in one of our apartment buildings, we're turning over, it's just the way the leases turned out. We're turning over 50% of that building in the next 90 days. That's the Zick apartments. And about half of those tenants, I think 5 of those tenants, transferred to a different apartment building that we own. And that's a huge success story for us. So, that is our very first step. Do you want to move to a renovated unit here for whatever reason? No. Okay. Is there a different apartment building that you'd like to live in? How can we minimize the impact to you? And then Basically we'll say, listen, if you have, another living opportunity that comes along, let us know and we'll work with you. And if possible, we'll let you out of your lease early. We'll waive any early termination penalty. We'll make sure you get a full refund of your security deposit. We're going to work with you every possible way we can to make sure that this is as non-disruptive as possible to you. Yeah, I'll be a little vulnerable with you here. So my wife and I, we were at Chick-fil-A several months ago, and there was this really beautiful soul, this woman who served us, and I'm always wearing the branded shirt. So today, I had two random interactions just wearing the branded apparel. One person just went, "Woo, Black Swan," like on the street. That was kind of interesting. And another person wanted to rent from us, had heard of us, heard that we were like a really nice place to live, and just like stopped me on the street basically and just said, hey, can I rent from you? So we have like a very good reputation. People just, I don't know, I'm always happy to talk to people. So we're at Chick-fil-A, this woman was serving us, and she lived in one of our apartment buildings that we were renovating, and she was not able to stay. And I think my wife and I talked to her for about a half hour, and said, what was your experience like? And she basically said, man, like, you guys were so amazing. I talked to this person, this person, this person, and they were all just so helpful. And I could tell that you guys cared. And unfortunately I could not afford to live there, after all the renovations were made, which was really unfortunate, because I really loved living there. And this kind of breaks my heart a little bit. She said, I loved how there wasn't cop cars there every night after you guys took over. And that's the main value that we bring is we buy communities where there's cop cars there every night, and we make sure that there's not cop cars there every night. That's really the main value that we bring. And she found another place to live. There was, a little bit of disruption to her life. The feedback that she gave us was she wished she had even more time. We gave her a pretty lengthy notice period, and she wished she has more time, and maybe no matter how much time we gave her, more time would have been preferred. But we asked, what could we do to make this the easiest possible process for you? Because we are very self-aware of the fact that that this is disruptive to people's lives. We know we're creating massive value when we drive through some of these communities, when we walk through some of these communities before we buy them. It's not a place where I feel comfortable and sometimes even safe. And when we're done, I feel a sense of pride and joy that this is this beautiful, beautiful thing that we've created. So I go to bed sleeping very well at night, the work that we do, but we're very aware of the impact that we have on people's lives. We do everything we can to possibly, possibly help them stay. I would say in the case of Douglas Trail, hopefully at least 50% of those people stay. And if they can't stay, is there somewhere else where we can help them go? Is there a different property management company that we can refer them to, if they're not able to stay in one of our other properties? In the case of Douglas Trail, there's probably about 10% of tenants that we really need to get rid of. They're kind of the bad apples that are spoiling the bunch, and we're going to be, issuing them, lease violations and stuff the day that we take over. There's a large swath of residents who have fallen behind on rent payments. They kind of fell behind through COVID, and we need to have a very real conversation with them of are you going to get caught up? Right now, about 10% of the units are behind on utilities, and the current ownership group has the opinion that you should not disconnect utilities to like protect appliance and stuff like that. We will disconnect utilities during the summer months. We won't do that during the winter months because I don't think that's ethical or wise. But we figured out that if you start paying people's utility bills, like you just don't ever stop. We even had like high income people where they're like, well, this is really convenient that my landlord is taking care of my utility bill for me and billing it back in the portal. So you have to set really aggressive boundaries with people. So between like, kind of those two groups of people, that's probably going to be about 25% of the community, I'm guessing, that might be impacted by some of those immediate changes. And I'm guessing maybe another 25% will choose to leave. But then it's my hope that the other 25% of people, I'm guessing there's going to be a good chunk of people that are Section 8 residents, ironically, that they are just going to love this change, because for them, the affordability does not change at all. Only the Section 8 authority, really their amount changes, and they're going to be elated to see these changes coming in. Sometimes I think people think that Section 8 tenants are like bad tenants. It's not true. In fact, sometimes Section 8 tenants are the best tenants because it's really hard to get a voucher. Like like you have to have some tenacity and some persistence to get a Section 8 voucher. In our community, the wait list is closed. You can't even sign up for the wait list in our community. In some communities, it's a comically long wait list of like, 10 or 30 years to obtain a Section 8 voucher. So those tenants, they have a certain amount of grit to get that there. They might be low income, but they have a certain amount of grit. So it's my hope that we keep the majority of those Section 8 residents. I think we probably will. And then there's another cohort of tenants that probably were eligible on an income basis when they moved in, and would not be eligible to move in today because their income has gone up so much. There's a lot of $50,000 pickup trucks and the like that are parked in those driveways. But as long as they're already there, they can afford it. And even at 40% higher rental rates, this is still going to be one of the highest quality, most affordable options in Rochester. So I suspect probably about 50% of those residents will say. Very good question there. All right, another one here from Dave Baumgardner. If there is a cash out refi, does the investor maintain their percent ownership of the fund? Absolutely, they do. So in most like syndications or private equity funds, after a return of capital has occurred, the allocation, the profit allocation or the equity ownership or something like that changes. So you start getting like a lower percentage of cash flow or of capital event proceeds or sale proceeds or whatever after you've gotten return of capital. In the Black Swan Fund model, it's all the same. It's a very simple model against that lemonade stand model. So you own 50% of the fund forever, and nothing there, no event can possibly change that, which is unusual. It's very unusual, to not be cashed out of the fund, where eventually you're out of the fund, or you're out of the fund at or you're only in it at a very low participation rate. So yeah, 100% of the profits go to you until you've gotten a full return of capital, and then a 50-50 split after that. No fees, no acquisition fee, no asset management fee, no capital event fee, no disposition fee, no loan recourse fee. There's so many fees, and we have none of those fees in the fund. So it's just a radical alignment of incentives that is just, it really empowers the investors. So to run through that in a really concrete example, we just kind of hit the 1-year anniversary on New 52 Apartments, and this was a home run deal. They're not all home run deals, so let me be very clear about that. But the mere fact that this can happen, and it's happened many times, speaks to the power of this model. So we purchased New 52 for $9.9 million, almost exactly 12 months ago, like 12 months and 2 weeks ago. We have an appraisal in hand for $13.5 million, and that's from 6 months ago. If we appraise it today, it'd probably be worth more like 15. I don't think I would take less than 17 million for that asset today. We've just driven such insane value to that asset, curing all sorts of management problems, filling vacancy, totally redoing the gym, adding a dog park. Just it's been a phenomenal out of the park home run success. So we've already achieved a 25% cash out refi on that asset back in the March timeframe, which is really unusual. So whatever cash flow the asset has generated, I think we've got like 75K in cash flow right now. We need to return to the investor right now. We just had one investor in that particular deal, but it's an identical model to the private equity fund. It's the same model we've used for years. So they've gotten all the cash flow. They got 100% of the proceeds from that, 25% cash out refi. And then we'll get a full cash out refi, probably in the next 60, 90 days, I'm guessing. So let's say that it appraises for 15 million. And at an 80% LTV, we could have 12 million of loan proceeds, 12 million of loan proceeds. When we originally bought it, we had an $8 million loan and $2 million of investor capital. So assuming there's been no debt pay down, our original loan is 8 million and our new loan is 12 million. So we've got $4 million to spend. So those first 2 million go to repay the investor, ignoring the fact that he's already gotten 25% of his capital back. So we'll assume he hasn't gotten any back. So 2 million goes to the capital partner, and then there's 2 million left. 1 million goes to Elaine and I, and 1 million goes to the investor as profit. So that 50-50 split has kicked in. So just to review that one more time, because I think it's some convenient numbers in that particular example. Bought this asset for 10 million, it's worth 15. We originally bought it with 2 million down, an $8 million loan. If we did a cash out refi at an 80% LTV on a $15 million value, we'd have a $12 million loan to work with today. So we have $4 million of cash to work with after paying off the $8 million loan. And then, so 2 million goes to the original investor. At that point, they've gotten their full return of capital. 1 million goes to Elaine and I, 1 million goes to the investor. So that's the business model, that structure kind of in a couple of sentences and a really concrete example that I think is super easy for most people to understand. And it really doesn't get any more complicated than that. That's the nice thing is, if it took a year, 2 years, 20 years to return capital, like those numbers don't change at all. Elaine and I remain, laser focused on returning that capital so we can participate in the profit. We really want our investors to get their money back as quickly as possible so that we can profit from the deal. And there's no disalignment of incentives where the general partners can make money on fees or different types of splits or whatever in different circumstances. We make money only symmetrically with our investors in that 50-50 split, and only after our investors have gotten our money back. So we love just the radical alignment of incentives there. Okay. Looks like we've got one more question here. Do you use your own people for renovation or hire contractors? All of the above. So we have an in-house maintenance team. So we've got 4 full-time employees of just absolute rock star maintenance technicians. All of our maintenance technicians, they might have like 20 years of experience each. So we have an incredibly grizzled kind of high level maintenance team compared to a typical property management company. Your typical property management company, they kind of find I'm going to say the cheapest, least experienced person they can find and give them some tools and maybe a truck and say, hey, go out there and go get them Tiger. If we, need to repaint a unit, we hire a contractor for that. If there's flooring that needs to be installed, we hire a contractor for that. So kind of I'm going to say the more labor intensive, lower skilled things, we always hire a third party contractor for that. Our in-house people get leverage to kind of manage those third-party contractors, to do initial troubleshooting, to do anything tenant-facing. We really like to have our in-house staff for that. We have really clean-cut staff. They've got the Black Swan Polo. We have a premium product, and so we really like to have a premium service person showing up in the unit when we're working in an occupied unit. Third-party vendors, you have less control over that, and there's frequently kind of less clean-cut people that are showing up. There's probably, I think we have at least 20 full-time employees total. There's probably about 100 people doing something somewhere for us today. Putting siding on Stonehaven, phase 2, installing flooring at one of our remodels for one of our apartment buildings that we're renovating, cleaning carpets for a unit turnover. It's probably over 100 people doing something for us somewhere. That'd be a good exercise for one of our team members to come up with. So what's that, like a 5-to-1 ratio approximately of kind of staff to vendors? We're always looking for more awesome vendors to work with, and we're always looking for more amazing people to hire. If you're thinking about joining our team, please reach out to me. Go to meetblackswan.com and schedule an appointment. We are always interviewing, always looking to find amazing people. So we have 2 full-time construction managers on staff. All they do is manage vendors, and then 4 full-time maintenance staff that have trucks and tools and can fix things themselves, but also manage vendors. And then a lot of vendors. So most of the work, 4/5 of the work or more is done by vendors. And then whenever there's kind of high level work that needs to be done, really, kind of customer facing work in occupied units, that sort of thing, that's when we tend to bring in our in-house staff to do that work. So excellent question. That's really, frankly, the toughest thing that we've been up against. We would be growing more if we had better availability of labor right this second. So like Stonehaven is a month or 2 behind schedule. It was supposed to have the first unit coming online right about now. I think it's going to be a month or 2 before that first unit in phase 2 comes online, just due to labor shortage right now. And ironically, we have a way easier time finding amazing, like office staff than kind of blue collar workforce individuals. That's where the biggest gap in the labor pool is right now. Like I'm sure you've read on the newspaper, or I don't know who's reading the newspaper anymore. You've seen on CNN, airline executives are out handling baggage. They can find flight attendants, they can find pilots, but they can't find baggage handlers. And so we're seeing that exact same dynamic in place in our own business, that most of those 100 vendor individuals out there are doing kind of blue collar work, painting and installing flooring, that sort of thing. And those are actually the harder positions to fill. I have an easier time hiring a construction manager than hiring someone to do the construction right now. So an interesting situation in the economy. So lots of great questions here. Really appreciate everyone's questions. We've been going here for a couple of hours. This seems like probably a good time for us to call it a night. I am unbelievably excited about Douglas Trail Townhomes. I'm so grateful for it seems like we still have most of our people here with us tonight. So we're grateful for everyone hanging with us. We're going to have insane financial outcomes with Douglas Trail, but more than that, we're going to have probably a third of housing in our community qualifies for, it's somewhere in the realm of Section 42. It has some affordable component. So maybe not 100% of the units are affordable, but 20% of the units or 40% of the units. So if we can figure this out, which I think we can, it's going to change the game. It's going to change the game for our community. It's going to change the game for our company. It's going to change the type of assets we can look at. Doing new construction, if you can work with an affordability component, if you can add an affordability component to a new development project, you can typically qualify for grants and subsidies. So maybe 60% of your community is market rate, but 40% is at that 60% AMI or lower, the way Douglas Trail is. So it's like 40% Douglas Trail, 60% market rate. We're going to figure this program out. We're going to figure out a way to run it at our standard, to run it like a market rate community. I think we've got a really good game plan in place to make that happen, to make it happen in short order. And I think we're just going to change what it means to be an affordable housing provider. And Douglas Trail is the start to that. So I'm unbelievably excited this is the deal I'm probably most excited about right now, even though like Tanara Villa is, kind of a sexier deal, right next door to a $1 billion master plan community. And, our city hall deal, it's pretty cool that we get to own the city hall of Rochester. But Douglas Trail is the thing that really speaks to me from a mission perspective, and from a pure financial perspective, it is the most financially advantageous deal in our portfolio for Fund 2 right now, because the numbers on this thing are just off the charts. So lots of really neat opportunities, both spiritual and financial with this deal, and we can't wait to close and to take it where I know it can go. So thanks everyone for joining this evening. It's truly an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to serve all of y'all in Fund 2, in Fund 1, and all the different ways that we've served you guys over the years. We appreciate you so much. And feel free to reach out if you have questions about this, questions about Fund 2. We love to just show up for people, and we're always here. Thanks so much.